You saw the title, and now you've got to be wondering, what in the world am I talking about? Or you know exactly what I'm talking about, but you're still here. So let me ask you this thought-provoking question. What if the reason why you, quote-unquote, don't enjoy games anymore, or the way that you used to, isn't about the games themselves, but instead about a change in you, or maybe your mentality of them? Let me explain. I truly believe that games as a whole really haven't changed a whole lot. I mean, there are definitely some really bad additions and things that, I don't know, manipulate us into staying attentive, whereas before there was more actual content. I mean, think back to the PS2 era where you couldn't add updates to games, so they had to actually release full games for their product to sell. It was a different time. I mean, like, even if you talk about games from like 360, PS3 era, compared to now, the only real thing that's changed is, in my opinion, mostly to do with the players. I find that when people, like a mass amount of people, call a game bad, it can be one of two things. One, the game can truly be bad, or easily perceived as not good. Hence, the Suicide Squad debacle of 2023. Honestly, small opinion on that game, not gonna go too far into it. I don't think it's a bad game. I truly think that it just was executed super poorly. It could have been something really good, but I'm not going to sit here and try to defend it too much because honestly, it could have been better. I got through the main story, really liked all the story stuff that was there, classic Rocksteady style, but the gameplay was lacking, and that's probably the best I can say about it. But even in the case of Suicide Squad, I truly think that it was because of the industry standard that made the game bad. They wanted to tap into some of the microtransactions and infinite forever game style, and that part was a bad choice, but with how popular that market is, it makes sense to want to go into it. It's the same thing with Ubisoft. We've had this conversation recently about X-Defiant, and I don't think they're wrong for it. I think it's a poor choice, but I get it. And then the second way that games are perceived as bad is when the mass amount of players that are playing it decide to have a problem with it and trash on it for, like, literally no reason. I'm gonna use the example of Dragon's Dogma 2. If you've played the game, you know that it's really, really fun and super fantastic to play. And I will give the controversy this. Oh, and the controversy, if you don't know, is that there are microtransactions. And they're really stupid microtransactions, like really super tiny things that you pay quite a lot of money for. But the dumb thing about that controversy is that you don't have to pay to get these items in game. They're actually pretty common. I really think that that was more of a spit in the face for people that are just super crazy about that kind of stuff. Like, you have that option, which is kind of cool, I guess. If you really wanted to have those things, you can. But there's not really a good reason to, so I don't see the harm in it. Who cares? It's just funny to me. People will throw such a fit. Like right now, Assassin's Creed Shadows. The huge, I guess, maybe it's not a controversy anymore. I don't know. I haven't heard anything much about this specific controversy in a while. With having Yasuke be a black samurai. There is nothing wrong with that. It's historically, I wouldn't say his whole story in this game is going to be historically accurate, but it's a part of history, and Ubisoft has always done this with their games, in the Assassin's Creed lineage, if you will. To where they take history and tweak it a bit. I think that's fine. If you want to die on that hill, I guess you can. I don't see the point, but in what would otherwise be a really fun game that you could get into and enjoy, you're going to pick that one thing to be upset about. And people complain about this woke culture and da-da-da-da-da, on and on. And there are instances of that where it should just not exist. But I think that there's so much stigma about these things being bad that we crush any chance of enjoyment of any particular media if it even hints at those things. And that is more the point of this conversation. Maybe you're one of the people that when you see a game, you're willing to give it a full honest shot. You're willing to get into it, give it an honest try, and judge it based on your own opinion and go off of that solely. Or you're on the flip side of that coin and you go based off what other people say and never fully play it yourself. You go off the opinion of everyone you see on TikTok and on the internet en masse, and you just go from that, and that is risky. Because honestly, if I did that, I wouldn't have played or enjoyed 90% of the games that I would now call my favorites. I feel like there are some universally loved games, but I also feel like there's some games that don't get the chance because of how universally hated they are, because one person said they didn't like it and everyone else followed. And that just isn't fair. This all comes around to the general point of player mentality of games isn't always reflective of a reality of games. And I don't think that's the game's fault. I also don't think it's most of the players' fault. The difference between now and when, say, we were younger and we had our PS2s and we were playing Spyro or Crash is that we didn't have expectations of what we were getting. We just knew that it was a game, we were supposed to have fun with it, and if you were like me, you didn't have many options, so you just played it. And you liked it because it was what you had to play. Shoot, dude, once I started getting more games, I remember my favorite for the longest time was either Ultimate Spider-Man or The Incredible Hulk for PS2. Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, that is. And they were so much fun because my mind reeled with infinite possibilities. I knew the game was finite. I didn't care how finite it was. I just really liked what I was playing because it was fun for what it was. I wasn't expecting a million things from it. It was just good for the sake of being what it was. And there's definitely some to be said about the industry and how developers try to make every game appealing to everyone, and I think that's a problem too. That's a whole different topic in itself. But I think the larger issue is that gamers expect so much more from games now than they ever did before. If you look at Black Ops 2, for instance, like the online, there really wasn't a whole lot to get from it. But it's one of the most beloved games in history because it's a fantastic title. And if you look at like everything that's in it, there really, in multiplayer, for instance, there really was only gold guns to get. That's the only form of progression. Calling cards, gold guns. There were no operator skins, nothing like that. There were no battle passes, no microtransactions, beside those little skin packs, which were kind of cool. There was like 12 of them in total, I think, and they were like $3 a piece. Who cares? But that was cool. Like, actual DLC for games, in the sense that there was a season pass and everything, but you paid like a set amount of money for 4 DLC packs over the course of however long, a year. And that was fine. That was perfect. You get 4 maps and a zombie map. Excellent. There was very much limitations to it. People love the zombies because there's more to explore, and that's the whole thing, is like, discover what you can within. But we used to be much more content with what we had and not what we don't. It didn't matter what we didn't have because what we had was cool. And I don't think that part's changed. I think that gamers just want so much more. And for a long time there, I was one of them that wanted a lot more and would shit on things just because they didn't have more. And I don't think that's fair. I think that takes a lot of the enjoyment out of things, and it doesn't allow you or anyone else around you that you talk to about it like that to have a good pretext to go into things and be receptive of those things. And so if you take anything away from this at all, start up a game and let your mind go clear and just try to enjoy it. That's all you can do. Honestly, I feel like if you just let yourself, you might find your next favorite game today, or tomorrow, or whenever the next one releases that you have in your eye on, even if you've heard bad things about it. Just give it a chance. You never know, but you can let yourself enjoy video games again, and that can all start right now.